April 1st, 1945. The dawn breaks over the East China Sea like a reluctant witness, painting the horizon in bruised purples and golds. From the decks of the USS El Dorado, command ship of the U.S. 10th Army, the island of Okinawa emerges not as a fortress, but as a mirage. A low, green smear against the endless blue, fringed with white coral beaches that seem almost inviting. The air hums with the low thrum of idling engines, the sharp tang of salt and diesel mingling with the faint, acrid bite of gun oil from the racks below. Marines of the 6th Marine Division, veterans of Guadalcanal's mud, Tarawa's bloodied sands, and Palaio's charnel house, stand at the rails, their olive-drab fatigues stiff with starch and sweat, M1 Garand slung across chests hardened by 3 years of island-hopping hell. No one speaks of fear. Not here, not now. These are men who have learned to measure terror in increments. The whistle of a Japanese knee mortar, the sudden bloom of a banzai charge in the jungle night. But today, as the Higgins boats bob in the swell like corkwood ducks, there is only the rhythm of preparation. Radios crackle with terse check-ins, Baker Company all green, forward observer net live. Foxtrot, tanks secured, flame units fueled. The sea is a carpet of steel, over 1,300 ships in the Armada, from lumbering LSTs disgorging Stuart light tanks to the sleek carriers of Task Force 58, their flight decks alive with Corsairs and Hellcats, warming props that slice the humid air like scythes. On the beaches, codenamed Love and Red, silence reigns. No thunder of preemptive artillery. No swarms of Zeros clawing from hidden strips. Just the lap of waves, the distant cry of gulls, and the faint rustle of Okinawan palm fronds, stirred by a breeze that carries the scent of wild orchids and untrodden earth. Lieutenant Colonel James D. Shea's 4th Marines hit the sand first, boots sinking into the warm, powdery coral as if stepping onto a forgotten shore. Engineers fan out with Bangalore torpedoes and dozer blades, probing for mines that aren't there. Tanks rumble ashore, their treads churning furrows in the beach, while quartermasters in sweat-soaked shirts unload pallets of 105mm shells, K-rations, and cases of .30 caliber ammo that stack like cordwood under camouflaged nets. From the conning tower of the battleship USS Tennessee, anchored 5 miles offshore, Captain Richard H. Thomas peers through binoculars at the unfolding tableau. The sea is glass-smooth, reflecting the pale underbellies of hovering observation planes, Piper Cubs that drift like lazy dragonflies, their spotters relaying coordinates via radio links that tie the fleet to the shore in an invisible web. Spot 1, this is fire control, grid yellow Tango 4-2, over. The response is immediate, a voice calm as a banker's ledger. Fire mission approved, 16-inch batteries hot, time on target, 3 mics. Thomas lowers the glasses, his face etched with the quiet certainty of a man who has orchestrated symphonies of destruction before. This is no raid, he thinks. This is rehearsal for the home islands, Tokyo's doorstep, deeper inland, beneath the jagged spine of Shuri Ridge, a labyrinth of coral caves honeycombed into the island's limestone heart. Lieutenant General Mitsuru Ushijima sits in a command dugout lit by the flicker of kerosene lanterns. The air is thick, cloying with the damp rot of fungus and the metallic tang of unwashed uniforms. Maps unfurl across a rough-hewn table of coral slabs, their edges frayed from constant handling. Ushijima, a slight man of 56, with wire-rimmed spectacles and a mustache trimmed to military precision, traces a finger along the blue arcs denoting American landing zones. His staff, colonels and majors in faded khaki, faces gaunt from rice rations stretched thin, cluster around him like moths to a flame. The 32nd Army's total strength, 76,000 men, a mosaic of Okinawan conscripts, Imperial Army regulars, and colonial levies, armed with Type 99 rifles, a scattering of 75mm field guns, and Type 97 Chaiha tanks whose engines cough like dying men. Colonel Hiromichi Yahara, Ushijima's chief of staff, stands apart, his narrow eyes fixed on a wireless set that spits static bursts from distant Tokyo. Yahara is the pragmatist in a room of fatalists, a 48-year-old tactician schooled in the rigid doctrines of Meiji-era warfare, where victory hinged on the bayonet's thrust and the spirit's unyielding bushido. He has argued for months against the High Command's obsession with banzai charges, pleading instead for a defense in depth, caves as fortresses, ridges as meat grinders, attrition as the great equalizer. The Americans come with machines, he'd warned in dispatches to General Sugiyama in Manila. We must bleed them with terrain, not expose our flanks to their steel. Now, as the first reports trickle in, scouts on the bluffs confirming landings unopposed, Yahara feels a chill that has nothing to do with the tunnel's perpetual damp. "General," he says, voice steady as polished stone, "the enemy is ashore in force. No beach resistance encountered. They advance inland with unusual cohesion." Ushijima nods, his expression a mask of imperial resolve. "As anticipated. Let them come. The Shuri line will be their graveyard." A murmur of agreement ripples through the officers. Brave words, born of the same untested faith that has carried Japan from Pearl Harbor to the Philippines. But Yahara's mind races ahead, tallying the intangibles, the Americans' endless supply convoys, their aircraft that blot the sun like locusts, their ships that hurl death from beyond the horizon. By midday, the illusion of calm fractures. From the forward slopes of the Chinan Peninsula, a Japanese observation post, 2 lieutenants huddled in a camouflaged foxhole spots the first stirrings. American LVTs, landing vehicle track, churn up the beach, disgorging not just infantry platoons, but a phalanx of M4 Sherman tanks, their hulls festooned with extra tracks for added armor and 75mm guns swiveling like predatory eyes. Behind them, half-tracks towing 105mm howitzers unlimber with mechanical precision, crews slapping home shells in a ballet rehearsed 1,000 times in stateside maneuvers. Radios link it all, tank commanders barking to infantry lieutenants, forward observers in the Amtraks relaying windage and deflection to fire direction centers afloat on the El Dorado. "This is Foxtrot 1, enemy OP at grid 7 to 9, request rolling barrage." The call goes out, and the earth answers. From the Tennessee's turrets, 16-inch guns, each barrel a 30-ton behemoth, capable of lobbing 20 and 700-pound shells over 20 miles, belch flame in staggered salvos. The reports roll across the water like thunder chasing lightning, the recoil shuddering the deck plates under Thomas's feet. Onshore, the impacts walk the ridgeline. Coral erupts in geysers of pulverized rock and steam, each shell cratering the earth deep enough to swallow a Chaiha tank whole. The Japanese observers never see the rounds coming. One moment they peer through binoculars at the Marine advance, companies echeloned in bounding overwatch, engineers probing with mine detectors. The next, their foxhole is a smoldering pit, the air filled with the ozone reek of high explosive. In the tunnel, the concussions arrive muffled, like the distant pounding of surf on a hollow drum. Lamps swing wildly, casting shadows that dance across the walls like specters. Dust sifts from the ceiling, coating tongues with grit. A radio man bursts in, face ashen, clutching a sheaf of intercepted American signals, fragments pieced together from a downed scout plane's logbook, captured that morning by a patrol near Naha. "Sir, enemy documents, fire plans, they're coordinating everything." Yahara snatches the papers, his fingers trembling not from fear, but from the dawning weight of revelation. The charts are meticulous, overlays of gun emplacements, not just the divisional artillery, 6 battalions of 105s and 155s, 108 tubes in total, but integrated with naval fire support tables from the Tennessee, the Nevada, the California. Battleship salvos calibrated to the yard, timed to interlock with carrier strikes from the Essex-class flats steaming 100 miles east. He scans the figures, voice dropping to a whisper as he reads aloud. "1 division, 12,000 effectives, commands 27 artillery battalions in support. That's 324 guns, sir. More tubes than our entire 32nd Army field pieces combined." The room stills. Ushijima leans forward, spectacles glinting in the lamplight. Impossible. Exaggeration. But Yahara shakes his head, unfolding a logistical overlay. Truck convoys from rear bases, ammo dumps projected to sustain 500 rounds per gun per day, resupply via LSTs that unload under air cover. "No, General, look here. They're engineers. Not support troops, they're assault units. Bulldozers mounting machine guns. Demolition teams with satchel charges for caves. And the tanks, radio nets linking each platoon to air control. A forward observer calls and Hellcats roll in under 5 minutes. The electric shock courses through the staff like a current. Major Tanaka, a portly artillery officer with grease-stained cuffs from futilely coaxing his batteries 75mm, stammers, "But our guns, we have spirit. We can." Yahara cuts him off, his tone not accusatory, but clinical, like a surgeon diagnosing gangrene. Spirit wins skirmishes, Major. This is systemic. Their firepower isn't massed in one place. It's distributed, responsive. The infantry calls the Navy calls the air wing. It's as if the division breathes as one organism. Ushijima straightens, his face a study in controlled fracture. Eyes distant, jaw set against the tide of unwelcome truth. We trained for maneuver, he reflects inwardly, for the fluid clash of divisions on open plains. This is no army. This is industry incarnate, forged in factories we can only dream of bombing. Outside, the Marines press on, unhurried. Private First Class Eddie Ramirez, a wiry Mexican-American from East LA, hunkers in a ditch with his squad, watching as a flame-throwing Sherman, its bow-mounted napalm projector belching liquid fire, roasts a suspected cave-mouth 200 yards ahead. The heat washes over him in waves, carrying the sickly sweet stench of burning vegetation and something darker, unspoken. His bar clatters softly as he reloads. The radio on Corporal hails back, buzzing with updates. All clear on left flank. Engineers bridging the ravine, advance to phase line blue. No chaos, no hesitation. Just the machine turning, gears meshing from Detroit's assembly lines to this god-forsaken rock. By dusk, the first prisoners trickle in, bewildered Okinawan laborers pressed into service, their eyes wide with the incomprehensibility of it all. Interrogators in the beachhead CP note their confessions. Japanese troops dug in deep, expecting the Americans to break on the beaches as at Tarawa. But here, the beaches were mere prologue. As night falls, stars prick the sky above the fleet, and the horizon glows with the running lights of destroyers on picket duty. In the Tennessee's wardroom, officers pore over after-action reports, toasting not with rum but with the cold precision of their craft. Thomas raises a glass. To the system, gentlemen. May it grind them fine. Beneath Shuri, Yahara folds the documents away, the lantern smoke curling like ghosts around his fingers. The concussions have faded to an intermittent rumble, but the silence in the tunnel is louder, a vacuum filled with the ghost of calculations yet to come. Ushijima retires to his cot, staring at the flickering wall, while Yahara lingers, tracing invisible lines on the map. They land without opposition because opposition is futile against such totality. The staff disperses to their posts, whispers of doubt threading through the damp air like veins of rot. The Japanese had expected Marines, not a continental arsenal. Deep within the coral bowels of Shuri Castle's underbelly, the night of April 1st stretches into a suffocating vigil. The command tunnel, a warren of passages blasted from limestone and reinforced with bamboo struts, pulses with the muffled heartbeat of the island above. Kerosene lamps gutter in alcoves hewn by hand, their flames casting elongated shadows that writhe like eels across the uneven walls. The air hangs heavy, laced with the musty reek of mildew, the sharp bite of carbide from headlamps, and the underlying sourness of fear sweat on unwashed skin. Distant concussions from American probes, sporadic 105mm bursts testing the southern flanks, filter down as dull thuds, vibrating the floor like the footfalls of some colossal beast stirring in its lair. Lieutenant General Mitsuru Ushijima paces the length of the central chamber, his polished boots scraping faintly against the coral grit. At 56, he carries the weight of command with the poise of a samurai in a no-play. Erect posture, measured steps, a face sculpted from the granite of imperial duty. His uniform, crisp despite the humidity, bears the faint starch scent of a Tokyo tailor, a relic from deployments long past. Around him, the staff officers huddle over trestle tables, maps illuminated by the blue glow of shaded lanterns, wireless sets humming with fragmented dispatches from outposts along the Yaitaka escarpment. Colonel Hiromichi Yahara, the division's intellectual conscience, stands at the epicenter, the captured American documents spread before him like the entrails of a slain oracle. His fingers, ink-stained and steady, trace the fire direction charts. Grids of pre-plotted coordinates, each annotated with elevation corrections, wind vectors, and convergence points for massed barrages. The room is a pressure cooker of intellect and denial. Major Kenji Tanaka, the artillery chief, leans in too close, his breath fogging the paper as he squints at the naval gun tables. A heavy-set man in his 40s, Tanaka's uniform strains at the seams, buttons dulled by months of rationed polish. His battery, 24 75mm Type 90s, relics of the Manchurian campaigns, sits emplaced in reverse-slope pits, their barrels elevated to maximum for counter-battery fire. But the numbers on the page mock him. American 14-inch shells from the USS Tennessee, each weighing 1,200 kilograms, with a bursting radius of 60 meters. "This can't be right," Tanaka mutters, his voice a gravelly rumble laced with the dialect of rural Kyushu. "One battleship alone outguns our division artillery. And they have, how many? 5? 6 in the van." Yahara doesn't look up, his voice a scalpel's edge. 7 capital ships in direct support, Major, plus cruisers and destroyers, 5 inchers for close work. Their fire control is integrated, radar directed, with spotter planes feeding real-time corrections. Our guns fire blind, by wire or runner. Theirs converge on a dime. He taps a logistical overlay, a schematic of ammunition flow. Arrows snaking from beachhead dumps to forward batteries, each truck convoy guarded by P-47 Thunderbolts, prowling at 10,000 feet. The figures leap out, daily allotments of 800 rounds per 105mm howitzer, resupplied via UKWs that swim ashore like steel amphibians. Japan's own stocks? A trickle from Formosa, vulnerable to submarine wolf packs, rationed to 200 shells per gun per week. Mathematics, Yahara thinks, the great unyielding god. We've worshipped Bushido, but numbers demand sacrifice. Ushijima halts his pacing, drawing all eyes like iron to a lodestone. "Gentlemen, compose yourselves. The enemy's papers are a feint, propaganda to unnerve us before the true assault." His tone is paternal, laced with the cadence of academy lectures, but beneath it lies a tremor, faint as a fault line. Ushijima has orchestrated retreats before, from the Philippines, where MacArthur's legions had driven his divisions into the sea. But Okinawa is his ketsu, the decisive stand. Tokyo's orders are ironclad: hold the airfields, bleed the fleet, deny the staging ground for Kyushu. Yet as Yahara's revelations cascade, doubt creeps in like groundwater seeping through cracks. A young captain, Isamu Nakamura, fresh from the officer academy, his cheeks still boyish under the lantern light, ventures a question, his voice cracking slightly. "Colonel, the infantry. Surely our positions can hold. The caves are impervious. Tomioka's battalion has 500 meters of tunnels, machine guns enfilading every approach." Yahara folds the charts with deliberate care, the paper whispering like dry leaves. "Impervious to rifles, Captain, not to this." He gestures to a supplemental sheet, engineer task tables, detailing not just the 6th Marines organic battalions, 1st and 2nd Pioneer units 800 men strong, but attached Army engineer groups with 50-ton bulldozers and portable flamethrowers. Their engineers don't build bridges, they assault. Bangalore torpedoes for wire, satchel charges for blockhouses, and these Zippo tanks, Shermans with napalm projectors, 150-meter streams of fire. One pass and a cave mouth becomes a crematorium. The room absorbs the image in silence, coral glowing white-hot, defenders choking on superheated air, the roar of ignited gel drowning screams. Tanaka pales, recalling a briefing on Tarawa, how American engineers had turned reefs into ramps under fire, their losses a fraction of the assault wave. The wireless crackles then, shattering the hush. A dispatch from Colonel Kasaku Munakata's 24th Division, holding the southern neck. Enemy armor probing Route 1. Tanks in platoon strength, infantry dismounted with walkie-talkies. Request artillery support, coordinates enclosed. Ushijima nods to the radioman who relays the fire mission. Minutes stretch like taffy, runners would carry the order in a chain of whispers, each leg eating precious time across fractured terrain. But before the first Japanese shell arcs skyward, the American response blooms, a rolling thunder from offshore. 8-inch cruisers bracketing the contact point with airburst shrapnel that sleets the jungle like metallic rain. From the fleet, spotters in their Cubs relay, splash 1, adjust 50 left, add 100. Inland, a forward observer, Sergeant Lyle Harlan, a lanky Iowan embedded with the 22nd Marines, keys his SCR-300 backpack radio, voice steady amid the cordite haze. "This is Foxtrot Sugar, target acquired, enemy battery at grid Echo 7. Danger close, bring it." The barrage falls as one organism. Divisional 105s from the 15th Marines laying a creeping curtain, interlocked with naval 5-inchers suppressing counterfire, capped by a Hellcat strike from the USS Hornet. 500-pounders cratering the earth in sequence. The impacts chain like dominoes, Jungle canopy shreds into green confetti. Coral soil heaves in black plumes, the acrid tang of WP smoke mingling with the wet earth scent of ruptured soil. Munakata's gunners, brave souls in sweat-soaked fatigues, hands blistered from breech blocks, fire 3 salvos before the storm engulfs them. One survives, crawling from the wreckage with burns that etch his story into scar tissue to whisper later in captivity, "They didn't aim, they erased." Back in the tunnel, the aftershocks rattle lanterns, spilling wax like blood onto the maps. Dust cascades in fine veils, coating throats and turning coughs to rasps. Yahara seizes the moment, his voice rising not in alarm, but in the cold clarity of a man reading his own obituary. "Listen, that's the sound of coordination." Their forward observer calls from 200 meters out, and the response is immediate. Air, sea, ground, fused. Our runners take 10 minutes to relay a plot. By then, the target's shifted. Theirs? Seconds. Radios in every squad, every tank. It's not bravery against us, it's precision. He unfolds the final document. A communications schematic, a web of frequencies linking infantry nets to carrier ops, artillery fire direction centers to engineer recon. Hubs and spokes, redundant and resilient, powered by batteries that arrive by the pallet. Ushijima's composure fractures, a subtle clench of the jaw, a flicker in the eyes behind his spectacles. "I've led men into the teeth of B-29 raids," he reflects, watched divisions melt under dive bombers. But this is war as mechanism, not melee. Tanaka slams a fist on the table, the coral slab shuddering. "Then we adapt. Mass the counter battery. Use the 150mm coastal guns at Naha. Spirit will." "Spirit is finite," Yahara interrupts, his tone laced with sorrow, not scorn. "Their logistics are infinite. See here, 1 Marine division, 12,000 rifles, but supported by 27 battalions, 324 guns, as I said. Tanks, 54 Shermans, each with radios tuned to infantry freak. They don't charge alone, they call fire, then advance behind it. And the air, constant cap, 200 planes rotating, response time under 5 minutes. Our zeros, fuel-starved, pilots green. We've no answer." The words land like spent casings, hollow and final. Nakamura, the young captain, slumps against the wall, the damp seeping through his tunic, chilling the fever of idealism. Whispers circulate, tales from Peleliu, where Marines had tunneled like demons, emerging with flamethrowers to purge the depths. From Saipan, where naval shells had caved entire ridges, burying battalions alive. Ushijima raises a hand, silencing the murmur. "Enough. We hold to the plan. Attrition on the Shuri line. Caves as redoubts, counterattacks at dawn to seize initiative. Tokyo demands no less." But as he speaks, his gaze drifts to Yahara, a silent entreaty in the shared glance. "Is there more we do not see?" Yahara nods imperceptibly, gathering the papers into a battered satchel. Alone later, in a side alcove where the air grows thicker with the salt drip of condensation, he lights a lone cigarette, contraband from a manila crate, its tobacco sharp and foreign. The smoke curls upward, mingling with the perpetual haze, as he pores over a personal notebook. "Sketches of defensive webs, pleas for resupply dispatched to the combined fleet. They fight as one," he scribbles, pencils scratching like nails on bone. "Infantry eyes the target, artillery ears the call. Navy arms the punch, air wings the shield. Engineers mend the wounds before they fester." It's not a division, it's an ecosystem, sustained by oceans of steel from America's heartland. The realization crystallizes, not as panic, but as a profound, gut-wrenching clarity. Japan's war machine, forged in the fires of 1930s ambition, creaks against this colossus of 1945 integration. Overhead, the American machine idles with predatory patience. On the USS Eldorado's flag bridge, Admiral Richmond K. Turner. Terrible Turner for his profane eloquence. Sips coffee gone cold, scanning the latest from G2. The landings, 60,000 troops ashore by nightfall, zero opposition, supply lines humming. A staffer approaches, tablet in hand. "Sir, 6th Marines report full divisional integrity. Engineers bridging the Asado River by 600. Air ops nominal, 500 sorties today." Turner grunts, a sound like gravel under treads. "Good. Remind Buckner, no rushing the line. Let the heavies soften it first." Below, in the holds, quartermasters stack 16-inch powder bags, the chemical tang sharp as vinegar, while mechanics on the Tennessee torque the breeches of turret 3, steel whispering against steel. In the tunnel, as the lamps dim to conserve oil, Yahara extinguishes his cigarette on the coral floor. grinding it to ash with his boot. The staff retires to bunks strung from bamboo, the rustle of straw mats and muffled breaths the only counterpoint to the island's nocturnal chorus, crickets in the scrub, the distant surf, and now, the faint drone of patrolling Catalinas sweeping for subs. Ushijima lies awake, staring at the ceiling's stalactite teeth, the weight of 76,000 souls pressing down. Clarity is the cruelest foe, he concedes inwardly. It strips illusions, leaves only the ledger. Dawn approaches, gray light filtering through ventilation shafts like smoke from a dying fire. The first true barrage will come soon, not a storm, but a scalpel's incision. Precise and unrelenting. Yahara rises, slinging his satchel, stealing for the reports that will confirm what the papers foretold. The Japanese staff emerges into the antechamber, faces drawn but resolute, clutching rifles and maps as if talismans. Outside, in the pre-dawn mist, Okinawan auxiliaries, farmers in armbands, eyes hollow with conscripted dread, stoke cookfires with scavenged driftwood, the smoke rising in fragile columns soon to be lashed by wind and shell. They had prepared for infantry. The Americans had prepared for inevitability. April 3rd, 1945. The Okinawan sun climbs reluctant over the horizon, its light fracturing through a pall of low clouds that hug the island like a shroud. From the forward slopes of the Maida escarpment, the American advance halts at the ragged hem of the Shuri line, a jagged bulwark of reverse-slope ridges where coral bluffs rise 200 feet like the vertebrae of some ancient buried beast. The air shimmers with heat haze, carrying the mingled scents of crushed pineapple from trampled groves, the oily exhaust of idling Shermans, and the faint chemical bite of cordite lingering from overnight probes. Marines of the 6th Division, squads in sweat-darkened utilities, faces caked with red Okinawan dust, hunker in hasty scrapes, their eyes fixed on the green wall ahead. Bamboo thickets laced with spider-wire tripods, cave mouths yawning like black wounds in the limestone. Sergeant Lyle Harlan, the Iowan forward observer from Baker Company, 22nd Marines, adjusts the chin strap of his helmet, the leather creaking softly against his stubbled jaw. At 28, Harlan is a walking atlas of the Pacific. Scars from a Palayu shrapnel kiss on his left forearm, a Purple Heart pinned to his sea bag back in San Diego. His SCR-300 radio, a 30-pound brick of bakelite and vacuum tubes, slumps across his back like a reluctant pack mule, its antenna whipping in the breeze. He peers through field glasses at the ridgeline, 800 yards distant, faint glints of Arasaka bayonets among the ferns, the telltale mound of a 47mm anti-tank gun's revetment. Skipper, I've got eyes on. Grid Hotel 3, probable OP. Looks like a platoon dug in, maybe a MG nest at the crest. His voice, drawled low over the hand mic, carries the flat vowels of Iowa cornfields, steady as a metronome. Lieutenant Elias Grant, platoon leader, a Harvard man turned rifleman, his glasses perpetually fogged, nods from the lip of a bomb crater, his Thompson submachine gun cradled like a sacrament. Call it in, Lyle. Walking barrage, then we button-hook the flank. Harlan teased the radio, the circuit hissing to life. Firefly Base, this is Foxtrot Sugar. Mission, H&I on Hotel 3. 6 rounds, heat quick, danger close at 400. Over. The response is a chorus. The Divisional Fire Direction Center on the El Dorado, a bank of slide rules and tabulators crunching angles in seconds, relaying to the 11th Marines batteries. 18 howitzers per battalion, 105mm and 155mm long toms, their muzzles elevated in a lethal geometry. Tubes swabbed with copper foil, breech blocks slamming home shells stamped Raven from Pennsylvania foundries. The math is merciless. Muzzle velocity 1,700 feet per second, time of flight 28 seconds, impact deviation under 50 meters at this range. The Earth replies first with a basso profundo growl, 105s barking in staggered volleys, the recoil waves rippling the ground like pond stones. Shells arc invisible, fusing to burst on descent, shredding the ridgeline in a chain of orange fireballs. Coral fractures with the snap of dry timber, hurling fist-sized shards that scythe the undergrowth. The air fills with the chalky reek of pulverized limestone and the vegetal steam of eviscerated foliage. Japanese defenders? Sergeant Taro Ikeda's platoon, 32 men from Kyushu farms, their Type 99s clutched in white-knuckled grips, scramble for cover as the barrage walks toward them, a 50-yard front of churning hell. Ikeda, a 24-year-old conscript with ink-black tattoos of koi snaking up his arms, bellows, "Down! Caves, now!" over the din, his voice fraying like old rope. They burrow into slit trenches, helmets pressed to knees, the world reduced to thunder and tremor. But the American calculus extends tentacles. From 5 miles offshore, the USS Idaho's 14-inch rifles, 9 barrels per turret, each a 66 caliber Nightmare, join the symphony. Captain Richard Thomas on the Tennessee's bridge monitors the plot. Radar pips syncing with optical spots from a circling O-1 Bird Dog, its engine a distant mosquito whine. Straddle. Add 200, fire for effect. The battleship shudders as if struck by gods. Muzzles flashing blue-white, the overpressure flattening gulls in mid-flight, shells keening eastward at 2,500 feet per second. Impacts on the ridge. Each 1,200-kilo projectile detonates with the force of 200 kilos of TNT, excavating craters 40 feet wide, 20 deep, the blast wave compressing air into a visible shock front that flattens palms and snaps bamboo like matchsticks. The ground heaves. A seismic belch that collapses forward slopes into talus slides, burying Ikeda's machine gun nest in a 10-ton tumble of rock. Survivors claw from the debris, ears ringing with phantom bells, nostrils raw from the sulphurous reek of burster charge. In the Shuri tunnel, the concussions arrive as a rolling earthquake, lanterns swinging in wild arcs, dislodging stalactites that tinkle like shattered crystal. Dust billows in choking clouds, turning the air to a gritty soup that coats lungs and stings eyes. Colonel Hiromichi Yahara braces against a support beam, the captured charts clutched in one hand like a talisman, his free arm shielding his face. The staff, Ushijima at the map table, Tanaka frantically plotting counter-battery arcs, staggers like drunkards in a typhoon. A runner bursts through the blast door, uniform torn and bloodied from a shrapnel graze, gasping, "Artillery fire on the 89th Regiment. 12 tubes massed. No more." Caves collapsing at point 24. Yahara's mind races, overlaying the assault on his mental grid. Not isolated batteries, but a converged storm, 27 battalions total, 324 guns computing as one via radio loops and predicted fire tables. Quantity is the lie, he realizes, the epiphany sharp as shrapnel. It's the integration, each shell a data point in a greater algorithm. Ushijima steadies himself, spectacles askew, his voice cutting through the din like a katana's whisper. Status on counterfire. Tanaka, wiping dust from his dials, barks orders to the wire net. All batteries shift to grid Echo 9, salvo by section. But the Japanese artillery scattered 75s and 105s, 120 tubes army-wide, reliant on optical rangefinders and flag signals, stirs sluggishly. Runners sprint between pits, whistles shrilling, delays compound, 5 minutes to relay, 3 to lay, 2 to load. By then, American counter-battery radar, SCR-584, sets on hillocks behind the lines, has triangulated the flashes, feeding corrections to the 15th Marines of 155s. Enemy guns plotted, rolling barrage, VT fuse. Proximity shells detonate overhead in lethal blossoms, shrapnel raining like brass confetti, silencing Tanaka's forward 75s in a chain of secondary blasts that ignite powder carts, the nightmarish orange of burning propellant blooming against the dawn. Engineering enters the equation then, the Americans' hidden multiplier. From the base of the escarpment, Captain Miriam Voss, Captain Elias Voss, a civil engineer yanked from a Louisiana levee project, directs the 2nd Pioneer Battalion. Not rear echelon diggers, these 800 men, assault troops in helmet nets, armed with M1s and demo packs, their ranks swelled by attached army units, hauling M4 dozers with 50 cal cowcatcher blades. All right, boys, flame the approaches, then blade it clean. A Zippo Sherman lumbers forward, its trailer of napalm drums sloshing, the projector hose snaking like a cobra. It belches a 150-foot jet of jellied fire, the whoosh audible over the barrage, igniting thickets in walls of searing yellow. The heat is a physical blow, warping air into mirages, the stench of roasting resin and charred earth thickening the smoke. Defenders in outlying pillboxes, Okinawan home guards, elderly men with bamboo spears, emerge coughing only to wither under marine guarans, the pops crisp as breaking glass. Voss's dozers charge next, treads grinding coral to powder, blades shoving tumbled rock into ramps that climb 30-degree slopes. Engineers dismount under cover, Bangalore torpedoes, 7-foot steel tubes packed with ammonium nitrate, thrust into wire entanglements, detonated in sequence to carve breaches 20 feet wide. The blasts are surgical, no wild shrapnel, just cleared lanes for infantry to flow through. Squads bounding in fire team rushes, grenades arcing to flush holdouts. One pioneer, Private Amos Lee, a black sharecropper's son from Alabama, hefts a satchel charge to a cave mouth, the 20-pound pack heavy with C2 plastique, its fuse hissing like an angry wasp. Fire in the hole! The concussion seals the entrance in rubble, the muffled screams fading to silence, Lee's face impassive under the soot streaks. War's math. 1 charge, 10 lives. Lives. Efficient as plowing, air power seals the ledger. Overhead, the sky fractures into a dome of controlled chaos. 200 aircraft from Task Force 58, rotating in 30-minute cap cycles. F-4U Corsairs with 2,000-pound bellies, TBM Avengers loitering for close air support. Lieutenant J.G. Harlan Hawk Riley, a 23-year-old from Oregon lumber mills, banks his Hellcat over the line, the Merlin engine's snarl vibrating through the stick. From Harlan's ground radio, "Air, this is Foxtrot Sugar. Target, Ridgeline Bunkers, Grid Hotel 3, strafing run, then bombs away." Riley slots in, diving from 5,000 feet, 50 caliber tracers stitching the crest like golden thread. The impacts chew coral to spray, gunners in the caves firing blind with Type 92s, their 7.7mm rounds pinging harmlessly off armored bellies. Rayleigh pulls up, releases. 2 500-pounders tumble earthward, fuses set to delay, burrowing 5 feet before erupting. Delayed blasts that walk the ridge, collapsing tunnels and progressive cave-ins, the ground undulating like a serpent's spine. In the tunnel, Yahara charts the onslaught on a grease pencil overlay, lines converging like veins to a heart. Naval fire, 2,700-pound shells every 30 seconds per ship, 7 battleships yielding 1,500 tons of steel per hour. Artillery, 324 tubes, 10 rounds per minute, a deluge of 3,000 shells in the opening 10 minutes. Engineering, 50 vehicles reshaping terrain at 5 miles per hour, breaches punched every 200 yards. Air, 50 sorties per hour, each delivering 1,000 pounds of ordnance, response time averaging 4.2 minutes. "It's not devastation," he murmurs to Ushijima, who stands rigid as a statue amid the shaking walls. "It's orchestration. Their fire doesn't suppress. It erases positions before we can man them." Tanaka, overhearing, slams his plotter down. "Then we go deep. Caves hold against anything." But Yahara shakes his head, pointing to an engineer schematic. Portable compressors for blasting new vents, listening posts with geophones to map voids. Even the rock betrays us. Ushijima absorbs it, his reflection a storm behind calm seas. "We've mastered the cave as fortress, but they turn it to grave. Our bravery is static. Theirs is kinetic, fueled by a continent's sinews." A fresh runner arrives, voice breaking. "Communications severed at 44th Brigade. Ammo dumps hit, half our 75mm stock gone." The general nods, stealing. "Reroute via couriers, hold the line." But the math whispers otherwise. Japanese ammo, 150 rounds per gun daily. American, 500, with replenishment hourly via 200 trucks, each guarded by AAA batteries that swat incoming vals like flies. On the escarpment, the barrage lifts, a sudden hush broken only by the patter of coolth and the moans of the wounded. Harlan signals. "Clear to assault." Marines rise. A human tide behind the dozer ramps, advancing through smoke veils that sting like tear gas. Ikeda's survivors, 8 men, rifles bent, faces etched with the hollow of the damned. Fire from a shattered embrasure. Bolts cycling in futile rhythm. A Sherman crests the breach, Coke's MG chattering, then the ridge falls. Not with a roar, but a whimper. Positions taken in 20 minutes, caves sealed with thermite that glows white-hot for hours. The sun crests fully now, baking the carnage into a diorama of modern war. Craters steaming like cauldrons, tank tracks scarring the earth, the air heavy with the universal solvent of destruction. Burnt powder, ruptured bowels, and the faint floral rot of the island reclaiming its dead. In the Eldorado's ops room, staffers tally. 200 yards gained, 18 casualties, 150 estimated enemy KIA. Turner scans the board, coffee mug steaming. Textbook. Keep the pressure. Let the system do the work. Beneath Shuri, the tremors subside to aftershocks, the tunnel's air settling into a thicker fog. Yahara erases his overlay, the pencil strokes ghosts on the board. Ushijima retires to confer with aides, his steps measured, but his mind a ledger unbalanced. The staff disperses to damaged wires and silent sets, the clarity of numbers a heavier burden than any shell. The ridges still stood, but their defeat had already begun. May 1945. The Okinawan rains descend like a biblical scourge, transforming the island's coral bones into a quagmire of red slurry that clings to boots like clotting blood. 60 days into the campaign, the Shuri line, once a defiant spine of ridges and ravines, lies flayed open, its contours redrawn by the relentless calculus of American fire. Smoke hangs perpetual in the valleys, a gray miasma threaded with the acrid reek of napalm residue, rotting vegetation, and the sweeter, cloying rot of unburied dead. From the shattered heights of Sugarloaf Hill, the 6th Marine Division's remnants, platoons winnowed to squads, faces gaunt under weeks of dysentery and heat rash, pierce southward toward the heart of the fortress. Shuri Castle's dome, a skeletal silhouette against thunderheads, its tunnels now a festering warren of the desperate and the dying. Sergeant Lyle Harlan, thinner now, his radio pack a familiar yoke across shoulders raw from harness chafe, crouches in a shell-pocked foxhole, rain drumming on his helmet like impatient fingers. The barrage has evolved into a living thing, predictable in its fury, a 24-hour rhythm of high explosive and white phosphorus that turns night to stuttering day. Foxtrot sugar to firefly, adjust for drift, grid kilo 12, soaked ground, add 10%. His voice, hoarse from shouting over the din, crackles across the net, met by the Fire Direction Center's monotone affirmatives. The response is symphony. 155 mm, long tom batteries on the reverse slopes, their 127-pound shells, fused for low burst to maximize mud splatter, arcing in enfilade, interweaving with 8-inch salvos from the USS Louisville, whose radar-directed fire punches through cloud cover like a blind surgeon's knife. Impacts cascade, ridges erupt in gouts of slurry and steam, the ground liquefying into sucking pits that swallow men and machines alike, the thunderous roar blending with the rain's hiss into a white-noised dirge. Deeper in the line, Captain Elias Voss's engineers, now a ragged brotherhood of blistered hands and improvised litters, advance behind the wall of fire, their M4 dozers churning forward like iron behemoths, headlights cutting fog-shrouded swaths. The air is a sensory assault. Diesel fumes warring with the ozone tang of wet powder, the metallic screech of blade on coral underscoring the distant keening of 16-inch shells inbound from the Nevada. Voss, mud-caked to his belt, directs a flame tank forward, a Sherman Cobra, its projector fed by 175-gallon drums that slosh like overfilled bathtubs. Hit the mouth, full stream, then back. The tank halts 50 yards out, the hose uncoiling with a pneumatic sigh, unleashing a 200-foot lance of ignited gel that paints the cave entrance in hellish orange. The flames roar, devouring oxygen in a voracious gulp, the heat warping raindrops into vapor plumes that rise like spectral incense. Inside, Japanese holdouts, Colonel Kosaku Munakata's depleted 24th Division, reduced to 300 from 10,000, choke on the inferno, their screams a muffled counterpoint lost to the storm. The cave collapses in on itself, roof timbers charring to ash, tons of limestone slumping to seal the tomb, the afterglow casting long shadows that dance like celebrants on the slick walls. In the bowels of Shuri's command complex, a labyrinth 300 feet underground, now fractured by seismic aftershocks and flooded knee-deep in brackish seepage, Lieutenant General Mitsuru Ushijima convenes his final war council. The chamber, once a vault of resolve, is a ruin. Lantern wicks gutter in oily puddles, maps curling at the edges from humidity, the air thick with the fetor of mildew, unemptied latrines, and the gangrenous sweat of infected wounds. Ushijima sits at the head of a splintered table, his uniform hanging loose on a frame whittled by starvation rations, yam paste and brackish water eked from hidden cisterns. His spectacles, one lens cracked from a near miss, perch precariously on a nose sharpened by privation. Around him, Colonel Hiromichi Yahara, eyes sunken but gaze unyielding, his satchel of annotated charts now a sodden relic. Major Tanaka, bandaged and wheezing from shrapnel in his lung, his artillery silenced 2 weeks prior, and a handful of staff ghosts, captains with bandaged stumps, aides clutching sidearms as if they were lifelines. The walls tremble continuously now, a low-frequency dirge transmitted through the rock like the island's death rattle. Drips echo from ceiling fissures, pooling around boot soles, while the wireless, its vacuum tubes flickering on scavenged batteries, spits garbled fragments from isolated redoubts. Nezumi House falling. Ammo expended. Banzai at dawn? Yahara unfolds a final overlay, its ink bleeding in the damp, tracing the American noose. Probes from the 1st Marine Division on the east, the 7th Infantry's Army regiments grinding west, all funneled by naval interdiction that sinks resupply barges before they clear the reef. General, he says, voice a rasp tempered by fatalism, the line is breached at 5 points. Their engineers have sapped under the outer caves, demolition charges prepped. Airstrikes alternate with artillery every 15 minutes. Response time now under 2. Our counter batteries? Dust. Tanks? 3 runners, low on fuel. Infantry? Fragments. The numbers, once abstract horrors, now tally in blood. 32nd Army, 76,000 at landing. Perhaps 20,000 combat effective, ammunition a memory. Last 75mm shells fired in desperation, now men hurling satchels of grenades or sharpened bamboo. Ushijima absorbs it, his fingers steepled like a scholar at prayer, but inwardly the clarity Yahara has preached these weeks curdles to ash. We entered this as warriors of the Yamato Damashi, souls forged in the crucible of will. But they bring not swords but systems, logistics that pulse like arteries, fire that thinks faster than flesh. He recalls the captured plans, that first electric shock. 1 Marine Division, a microcosm of the machine, wielding 12 times the artillery, tanks that converse via ether, engineers who wage war on the earth itself. Okinawa was to be the anvil for the fleet's hammer, a denial battle to shatter American resolve before Kyushu. Instead, it reveals the chasm. Japan's war, a tapestry of individual valor woven on looms of 1930s steel, against America's web of integration, spun from wartime assembly lines that churned 50,000 shells a day. The Emperor's will endures, Ushijima intones, his words a ritual incantation, but the flesh falters. Yahara, your assessment? Yahara meets his gaze, the colonel's face a map of fractures, lines etched by knights tallying the untaliable. We fight on, sir, but this is no longer attrition. It's excision. Their division isn't men, it's the leading edge of a continent. Infantry calls the strike, the carrier responds, the battleship confirms, the supply ship replenishes, all without pause. Our bravery isolates us, theirs amplifies. The caves buy ours, not victory. Surrender is not in our lexicon, but prolongation serves no one. Tanaka coughs wetly, interjecting with fevered heat. Then the final charge. Gather the remnants, banzai under cover of rain, spirit unbroken. But his plea dies in the tremor of a near hit, a 1,000-pound bomb from a B-25 Mitchell burrowing overhead, the pressure wave compressing the air like a fist, snuffing lanterns and hurling charts into the flood. Outside, the breakthrough crests. On the rain-lashed slopes of Juana Draw, Private Eddie Ramirez, his bar scarred from a ricochet at a watcha pocket, leads a fire team up a sapper-cut ramp, the mud sucking at his ankles like greedy mouths. Flame tanks have cleared the forward caves, their gel residues slicking the approaches with oily sheen, the air still radiating furnace heat amid the downpour. Overhead, corsairs prowl in echelons, engines a sawing buzz that dopplers into the valleys, their rocket pods, HVARs slung like bandoliers, losing salvos on spotted movement. A Japanese counterattack materializes from the mist. 200 men, bayonets fixed, a ragged wave of cocky phantoms chanting Tenno Heika Banzai, their advance a desperate poetry against the machine's prose. Ramirez's squad drops prone, the bar chattering in controlled bursts, but it's the system that vaporizes them. Harlan's radio summons a destroyer picket, USS O'Brien, 5 miles out, whose 5 inchers lay a 200-yard box of HE, shells bursting in timed sequence to create interlocking walls of shrapnel. The charge disintegrates, bodies cartwheeling in red arcs, the ground pocked with steaming craters, the survivors' cries swallowed by the rain's indifferent patter. By May 21st, the caves yield sequentially, a domino fall of sealed tombs and routed fragments. Voss's pioneers dynamite the main gallery under Shuri's keep, 500 kilos of Composition B collapsing galleries in a thunderclap that registers on seismographs in Honolulu. Munakata's remnants, starved, fever-racked, emerge waving white flags fashioned from torn puttees, their eyes hollow with the knowledge that valor met void. Communications, once a fragile web of wires and runners, sever utterly. No relays from Tokyo, No whispers between redoubts, just isolated pockets fighting shadows. Ammunition? Exhausted. Last grenades clutched like rosaries, bamboo stakes whittled for close work. Tanks? Hulks, their chai has bogged and fuel dry, picked off by Shermans whose radios coordinate with prowling P-47s. In the command chamber, the end crystallizes on May 22nd. Ushijima, clad in full dress, a ceremonial flourish amid the squalor, gathers his officers for the rite. The air is leaden, saturated with the mineral tang of deep earth and the faint, floral decay wafting from ventilation shafts clogged with detritus. Yahara stands sentinel, his pistol at his belt, but his mind drifts to a pre-war lecture hall in Etajima, where he diagrammed Napoleonic maneuvers on blackboards, blind to the revolutions in fire and fusion. It was never men against men, he murmurs to Tanaka, who nods weakly from his palate, morphine dulling the fire in his chest. One division, 12,000 souls, but backed by arsenals that spanned an ocean. Their firepower wasn't multiplied by numbers alone, but by the seamless weave, sea to sky, ground to factory. We faced not Marines, but modernity. Ushijima raises a cup of sake, the last decanted from a shattered crate, his voice steady as he toasts the absent emperor. To the spirits of our fallen, may they find glory in the next life. The poison follows, cyanide phials, bitter almonds on the tongue, swallowed with ritual poise. Tanaka first, convulsing into silence, aids with ceremonial daggers, seppuku blades flashing in the lantern's dying glow, the wet sounds muffled by the rain's tattoo. Yahara demurs the blade, opting for the pistol, a single report echoing like final judgment. His last thought a ledger closed. Clarity came too late. Courage can win battles, but systems win wars. Ushijima last, the general's body slumping over the table, spectacles askew, his mustache twitching in the final spasm. The chamber falls still, the only witnesses the dripping walls and the ghosts of tallied dead. Dawn breaks on May 30th, the rains easing to a mist that veils the ruins like a widow's veil. American officers, Colonel James D. Shea of the 4th Marines, his boots squelching through the morass, pick through Shuri's husk, collapsed galleries venting steam, the castle dome pocked with 16-inch craters, the air heavy with the universal char of cordite and clay. No Banzai ghosts, no defiant banners, just the detritus of dissolution, rusted Arasakas, spent casings, and journals sodden with pleas for the impossible. On the El Dorado, Admiral Turner pores over the butcher's bill. 7,613 Marines dead or wounded, 49 ships sunk or crippled, but Okinawa secured, airfield for the B-29s, staging for the invasion that will never come, for Hiroshima's shadow looms. We didn't break them with bravery, Shea confides to his XO amid the rubble, kicking a twisted Chaiha bogey, or even power. We integrated. One division as the tip of the spear, but the shaft was all of America. The legacy unfurls in the post-war haze. Okinawa, the Pacific's bloodiest, claims 12,000 Americans, 110,000 Japanese soldiers, 150,000 Okinawan civilians. A calculus of systems clashing with souls. Japan, its empire a smoldering pyre, confronts the mirror. Bravery unmatched, but doctrine obsolete, industry outpaced. America emerges not as conqueror, but architect, its war machine, born of assembly lines and algorithms, the template for Cold Wars to come. One Marine division wasn't 12,000 men, it was 12 times the firepower, a system Japan never had the tools to defeat. Japan fought with bravery. America fought with integration. The battlefield is no longer ruled by men, but by the machines they command. As the sun burns off the mist, casting long shadows over the scarred earth, the island exhales, a collective sigh of earth settling into new contours, wild orchids already probing the crater's lips. The dead lie mingled in the mud, their stories etched not in glory, but in the unyielding math of survival. Courage can win battles, but systems win wars. This wasn't a battle between armies, it was a battle between centuries. If you believe forgotten minds deserve their stories told, subscribe for more Untold World War II brilliance.